Welcome to the Got Trauma Podcast with your hosts, Courtney K. and Monica Newland.
Hello, hello, hello. We are back.
Same day, episode 8 and 9. Look at us go.
2 for 1.
We were just talking and wanted to quickly backtrack into last episode, and we were getting a little
heated. We got a little heated. We got a little sensitive to the topics that we discussed.
A little sensitive about people struggling with addiction. And just to be very clear, we are not by any means attacking anyone who is struggling with addiction. If this is what's happening right now in your life, our heart goes out to you, and just know that we're merely talking about our experiences in our, in our lives,
our childhood, mostly.
Yeah. Just being people, on the other side of the addiction. So
it is a dark place to be in for sure. We understand, we do understand truly the difficulty of it all. Yeah. And we weren't trying to come across, not that anyone's told us that we were, but like we weren't trying to come across as very aggressive or not sensitive to people who are dealing with that. We were just speaking from our own circumstances.
Exactly.
So we just wanted to throw that out there that, we aren't trying to be insensitive, and we do understand that it's difficult.
Absolutely.
And in that episode, at the end, we talked a bit about gaslighting, and we felt that it was very related to our last episode, actually, in the sense of when we had these aha moments and understanding fully that, there was a problem with our lives and our situations and what that sort of looked like. You'll have to listen to that episode if you want to learn more. But in that, we had these aha moments, and what was very much a part of that was being gaslit and gaslighting, and sort of what that looked like for us. We wanted to make that the topic of today's conversation and go into more detail about what that is. And if anyone doesn't know what gaslighting is, I just do like a Google search. And gaslighting is a form of psychological abuse where a person causes someone to question their sanity, memories, or perception of reality. And in the last episode, we did talk about some specific examples of when we approached, in our case, we're talking about our mothers who have an addiction, who we had the most issues with. And we did approach them, countless times, and were met with very hostile and like gaslit sort of situations. And so we wanted to talk a little bit more about what that's been like and how to recognize if you feel like you've been gaslit. I think if you are questioning someone's or questioning your own situation or what you're witnessing, sort of what that looks like. So you want to start us off, Court?
So a very prime example of that for me would be the times that I had come, things had happened, and I had gone to my mom and said, like, this kind of scared me, whatever. And her response would be, "Oh, Courtney, you're so sensitive. You cry at the drop of a hat and carry your own hat." I can't tell you how many times that was said to me over the course of my life. And
you cry at the drop of a hat and you carry your own hat?
You carry your own hat. I've never had any fucking idea what that meant. I just knew that it wasn't very nice and that I was too sensitive is basically how I interpreted it. And
if that's not a narcissist, I don't know what is.
Oh, well, exactly right. What that did to me, though, was I was always a very intuitive child, and I still am very intuitive, but I definitely have a hard time. I definitely have a hard time identifying whether it's intuition or whether it's, do I trust this? Because I was always told not to trust my intuition when it came to saying, like, hey, this is upsetting me. I feel like this is wrong, but you're telling me it's not wrong. You're telling me it's just me being overly sensitive, and it's actually me that has the problem, not you. Your behavior is of no issue in this. It's completely my interpretation of it. I'm too sensitive.
Right. And you don't really understand what's fully happening here. And that's I like my first thought when you said that was, wow, how incredibly mature it is for you to have been a child and said, hey, like last night, that sort of situation happened and I felt very unsafe, and like your approach and like the forethought of saying something like that as a child is depictive of somebody who is operating far beyond their years, in my opinion.
I
Like
definitely
those are,
was.
yeah, like that is very clear that you are acting from somebody who is trying to understand the situation and gain control of the situation. And to do that as a child, that is like incredible, because my situation was like I was way more aggressive, and I didn't handle it very well, and I approached the situation from a hostile space, and the situation became very chaotic and hostile, volatile. And it's so sad to hear that you had to have those realizations and go to her and say something like, I feel very unsafe, for her to say, oh, you're just being dramatic. And that's just, makes me mad
It was,
and
yeah.
sad.
Well, it was hard because I never, again, and we've discussed this in previous episodes, that whole ability to feel safe when you're supposed to feel safe. It didn't exist for me. I can barely recount a time where I felt safe, that I didn't dread the nighttime. I feel like I was probably about 8 or 9 when I really started dreading bedtime,
Ugh.
because I just knew I would be woken up to something, and that I couldn't talk about it. I mean, obviously I mentioned it to my dad, and my dad would say something, and again, nothing would change.
What would he say?
He would just, say things to her like, you had a little bit too much to drink last night. Maybe you need to tone that down a bit. But again, he's also battling his own battle, and he knows, because now he's going to be gaslit by saying something. Because
Right.
now it's going to be like, well, if you didn't do this, if you weren't such an asshole and you didn't do this 20 years ago, I wouldn't be sitting here having to drink like this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Again, that was, that was a very ongoing battle with things. So it was really, really hard and
Like
scary. And
gaslighting is it's such a difficult thing to fully
well,
understand when you're in it.
yeah,
When you
it's
are
just,
witnessing it, or when it's being said to you, things like you're just being dramatic, or what you saw isn't actually what happened,
yeah,
or
that
you
one
don't
really fucked me up.
you're just a child, you don't get it. Like those sort of
Yeah,
things, when you are, I mean, you're saying, hey mom, I felt unsafe in this situation. That's a pretty profound thing for a child to say, and a very mature and sad thing for a child to say, for her to be like, oh well, you don't understand what's really going on here.
pretty much.
That's
And it would also be deflected onto my dad too, right? Like, it would be, well, if your dad didn't, buy all this beer all the time, or whatever it was they were drinking at the time, I wouldn't drink if it wasn't here. That was a big thing I heard a lot in my house. If it wasn't here, I wouldn't drink it. So, like, that being said, I'm still like,
this is
okay,
passing the blame.
well, exactly. So again, you haven't been heard, you haven't been validated. Nobody seems to be getting the level of discomfort that I'm experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And on a very personal sort of note here, like, I slept with my parents in their bed until I was probably 14.
Hmm.
And I did that because I was terrified that if I didn't stay in the same room as them, I wouldn't be able to control if they died. That's really fucked up. And that's not something I've told a lot of people. Here I am blurting it out now, because I feel like it's so important to be really honest about how, if somebody had just owned their shit and been like, I'm really sorry that happened. I was having a really hard time. That's not the way I should have handled it. Instead of being, basically handing that torch to me, and making me feel like I was responsible for their survival, essentially, is how that felt. Like, I dropped out of
Holy,
high school because I didn't want to leave my dad alone at home.
wow.
was a lot of the reason I was so uncomfortable in high school. I hated it so much. I just felt, because I just grew up always feeling like such a loser because of all this, and because of being told so many times that everything I experienced was never real. I didn't have the ability to trust any of my own intuition. And I can't explain it. I just didn't have the ability to be myself, is basically what it was. I didn't
No.
have any identity. My identity was in them and being their caregiver and making sure that they were okay.
That's so crazy. You've never told me that. You
It's
never
that-
have. I know, like we had, like I would have spent the night at your house and things like that, but obviously we would have been together. So I didn't know that that was until you just said this now.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the weight of that, what that would have felt like as a child, feeling that the best option for not yourself, but for your parents was for you to be sleeping in the same room so that you weren't faced with something more difficult in that somebody, you know, died. Because you at least felt like, I guess you had some control over the situation and you knew, oh, okay, they made it to bed, or, oh, okay, now they're in bed with me. That means that I have a little bit more control over this than what you would have if you were removed.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is, absolutely. And it's, again, those are the things I feel are part that come with that being gaslit, because again, you just don't have,
You're grasping
just
for
so
some
unvalidated
understanding.
so many times. I just felt like the only way I could control anything is by being in it all the time.
Right.
And, you know, realizing how absolutely unhealthy and detrimental it was to my lack of growth for a lot of, you know, years is pretty, it's one of those things I didn't actually expect for it to come out. It just kind of came out. So,
well, no, but I think you made a good point, because I know I didn't remove myself from the situations because I felt like I had to be in control. And even though I had no control, like really, and the reality of things is we didn't have the control that we thought we did. But we felt it was almost more comforting for us to be in it and trying to navigate it as best as possible for ourselves and for the benefit of everybody involved, being like the voice of reason. I always grew up being told I was like the voice of reason for my family in these situations, and I'm like, fuck that, I don't want to be that.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I don't
how
want
am I
this
that?
burden. I didn't ask for it.
But that is exactly to your point of, if I'm in it, if I'm involved, then at least I can hopefully, you know, curve or I guess reduce some of the negative that might come, or some of the circumstances that might come about if you're really in the thick of it, which is honestly like fucking me up, because that's such a heavy weight. I can't even imagine what that would have been like for a lot of years, like, well, for your, you know, all your childhood, having that burden. And gaslighting it can come in the form of like a lot of different things, and being like, well, you don't fully understand what's going on here, you can't comprehend it, you're just a child. You know, I used to hear things like, oh, well, here, you know, I would say something, you know, like, hey, I know that you're drinking a beer right now, like, why are you hiding it? Oh, here you go again. Oh, there goes, you know, here you go again. I remember that was like always a thing. And then me saying, well, I'm going to tell, like, you know, I'm going to tell my grandma, I'm going to tell, you know, my aunt, I'm going to tell my dad. Oh, no one's ever going to believe you. You don't know what's actually happening here. And then the other side of it being like, you know, even when I was a little bit older, I guess, you don't know what your father did to us. You don't know what, you know, the cancer, because I mentioned in the last episode that my mom had cancer when she was younger, and that sort of was the start of when things changed. And well, I'm a cancer survivor, you don't know what that's like. And putting that sort of like that like,
being
not
a
pressure,
deflection
but
of what you're addressing.
yeah. And like that other heaviness is like, oh, well, you know, I don't know what it's like to have cancer. Like, why should I know what that's like? I'm a child and I'm not a
Yeah.
cancer victim. And
Yeah.
me having to be like, I'm sorry you're going through that. And I'm sure you would have felt the same way, because that shame and things like that come about when you're approaching the situation and you know that there's a problem, and then you're saying, well, this isn't good. And then feeling the shame of even bringing it up, and
Yeah.
why are you doing this to me? And you don't understand how hard it is to be me. But like putting that on people that you love is very difficult.
It
for
is.
that receiving end of it. It's different. It's difficult for everybody involved, but
Absolutely.
we're speaking from.
I mean, I think everybody has that sort of, we all have that toxicity when we're feeling out of control about a situation.
Yeah.
And you have that
victim
sometimes
mode.
that knee-jerk reaction to say something really shitty just to, I guess, regain some ground is sort of, that feeling, that momentum in the moment. But the point being that you don't act on it. That's just,
Right.
you just don't act on it. My mom was notorious for always deflecting onto my dad, constantly deflecting everything onto him. And it would always be when if she felt like I was closer to him, and I remember being much closer to him than her. And if she felt for any reason, like maybe we were talking about her or ganging up on her, she would throw things at me. She'd be like, "Oh, you think your dad's so great." The day that I told him I was pregnant with you, he threw $5 at me and said, "Oh, what else could go wrong this week? Why are you telling me this? I'm 12 years old. Why?" And all I felt in that moment was guilt and shame and sadness. Now, I already feel like you don't want me. You're basically telling me my dad didn't want me.
Oh my
What
God.
the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, now in retrospect, I look at it and I'm just like, what the fuck, right?
Yeah.
And I think to myself, I look at my children, I'm just like, I couldn't even fathom. Couldn't even fathom talking about their father that way, even if I hated the man.
I know.
But it wasn't about her hate for him. It was about her resentment towards our relationship and doing everything she could to, throw whatever wedge she could find. And she did the same thing with like my grandmother. That was another thing. My grandmother, because, when her and my grandmother wouldn't get along, and I would side with my grandma 90% of the time because I just would. I'm objective. That's how I am. If I see that you're, acting a certain way and it doesn't like jive, then I'm gonna, I'll call you out.
Yeah.
And her saying, "Do you ever notice that there's no pictures with you and your grandmother? And that's because she was so ashamed of your birthmark, she wouldn't take pictures with you." What? Because I have a birthmark on my face. Are you serious? Why would you say that to me?
So messed up.
And she did this with aunts and uncles and other family members. Again, I didn't know what gaslighting was until like 3 years ago.
Literally a couple of years ago. Yeah, same.
Exactly. And then as soon as I heard it and then I read about it, I was like, holy fuck, do I ever? I should have been lit on fire for the amount of times I was gaslit as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, it was just crazy to me to think about somebody being that, like, just whatever it is they're battling inside themselves, that they felt that they had to just, reflect that cruelty, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and it's again, it goes back to the lack of accountability.
Oh,
and
God, yeah.
We talk about this a lot, which is one of the ways that you can overcome some of the shit is to sit in the shit. And you can work your way out of some of the negative thoughts, and you can gain some clarity, and you can shift your perspective a little bit and things like that. And
sorry, my children are homesick again I don't even know why they bother to go to school. They're always home. I might as well just homeschool them. So there's that. Go ahead. Sorry.
It is such a, well, I think like the topic is just, we felt it was worth bringing up and shedding some light on it, because we really didn't realize until like a few years ago that that's what these situations were, that being told that we were too sensitive, being told that, oh no, you're the crazy one here actually. And, you're just imagining things and no one's ever going to believe you. And, oh, here you go again. Like, or saying things that are really hurtful and then going back and being like, well, I didn't really mean that. That was just a joke. Like, you're just too
Yeah.
sensitive
Oh
and blah,
yeah,
blah, blah.
that
Or
was
you
always a
don't
good
really
one.
like, I a lot of the times heard things like, you don't really know what's going on here. You really don't understand what's going on here. I was made to feel like I was really stupid all the time. Like,
Oh yeah,
you
fuck
really
yeah.
don't understand what it's like and what this is or who these people are. And like, that was so frequent. It was like, well, I'm pretty sure I can tell that you're, engaging in reckless activities in the middle of our fucking kitchen, and that I have a fucking 6-year-old brother who's here, and not 6. So he would have been a bit older than that, but, yeah. Oh no, he would have been around 6. Yeah. Like, me thinking like, this is not, safe, this is not a safe environment, and being told that I was wrong. And you do question your own sanity.
Oh
You
God, yeah,
question
all the
whether or
time.
not, okay, is this as bad as, and this is like to our point of, we went a lot of years not understanding this. You reflect on it and you think, okay, is this as bad as I really think it is? Is
Yep.
this situation different than other family situations? Like, I had in recent years friends talk about, oh yeah, I remember being at your house and your mom being there, and said, oh, I'm just going to run to the store and go and get some stuff, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to make tacos for dinner. And then like my friends being like all excited that my mom was like going to make like tacos for all of us for dinner. And my girlfriend just told me this like this year, and I didn't remember the situation. And then her leaving, and then of course not coming back, because she would leave for days at a time, and how it was disturbing to my girlfriend, who watched all this go on, and me not be fazed by it. I'm like, oh no, she's not coming back. And they're like, what do you mean she's not coming back? Like, she said she was just running to the store to go and grab something, come back, cook us dinner. And I'm like, oh no, like,
No,
that was never good. Like,
she
me
just
being
wants to.
totally unfazed by it.
Yeah, she just wants
And
you to think she's a good mom. That's all that
yeah,
was.
that's all it was. And but I didn't know how sort of messed up those situations were at the time, I guess, because it was my everyday at that point. And then also being told that no, like, the situation of what I think this is isn't what it is. And like, you mix all of that up together and you're like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, I
Well,
don't know how bad it is.
exactly.
I don't know what's going on. I'm just trying to friggin' do my own thing. Right. And then, you didn't, like, you talked about like not being in high school, and you just are trying to navigate this life, which is already difficult for everybody. You're trying
Yeah,
to navigate life under these circumstances. It's like, it's no
tried high
wonder.
school. I couldn't do it. I mean, I went. I think I tried. I did like, I think it was like 1 month of grade 9, and then left. I actually had to get excused, and I said the reason why I wanted to not be in school anymore is because I was going to. How did I get out of that? I can't remember. Anyways, I was only 15. So you had to be 16 to drop out of school. I managed to get out at 15. Okay. I think they had an idea, because it wasn't a real surprise when you came to our home. And, you meet my parents, and I mean, my dad was at this point very heavily into his addiction. So it wasn't unobvious. I just blamed it on, I didn't like I said I was bullied, and I mean, and I was not horribly, but enough that I just, like, again, was never comfortable in my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, and also, like, you're worrying about what's happening at home. I just couldn't handle all the things. I just couldn't handle them. I was hormonal. Everything was just at this,
Sure. Well, grade
whatever.
9, our early days of high school are very difficult in general for people. It was difficult for me too, for sure. I remember it being a lot of dark times. Absolutely. So you put all that together, and it's, I'm sorry, it's a bit of a recipe for just disaster.
Yeah.
And also, I know, like, in the last episode, you talked about being on the bus and things like that. You had to come in on the bus, so you probably missed the bus all the time, and people were probably wondering what the hell was going on.
I actually, in grade 8, no, it's grade 8? No, grade 7. I missed 189 days of school because my dad would drop my mom off at work, and then he would come home and he'd be like, you want to stay home with me today? Like, I'm going to say no. But then he used me as his scapegoat to get out of work.
So how many days did you miss?
189.
So I just looked it up, And I mean, I'm not going back like a lot of years, but there's on average somewhere around 195 days of school in the year.
Yeah. I literally missed, okay, maybe, no, it was, I swear to you, I could probably find the transcript. It was like 189 days. It was insanity.
It's like the whole year. Yeah, you missed the whole
Pretty
year.
much. And
the first couple of days, you went like a week.
There was talk about, I probably went to school twice a week is pretty much what that came down to in that year. So, and again, and then I had this incredible teacher in grade 8, Mrs. Thurston. I'm going to say her name because she's wonderful. And my dad tried to pull the same shit. And I was going to go along with it because why wouldn't I? And anyways, I have to put Barbie pants on. Sorry, guys. Oh, no. It's a sweater.
This is the reality of mom life.
So the teacher, I think I'd missed like 2 days that week. And she calls me and she's like, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling well. She's like, I'm going to get in my car and come and get you if you don't get a ride here in the next 20 minutes. And I'm like, well, you can't do that. She's like, oh, I can't? I will. Like,
really?
She was like, I will come and get you if you don't come to school. Because she'd seen, obviously, in the year prior's transcript that I'd missed this obscene amount of days.
Right.
And the thing was,
without like explanation, really, right? Like clearly it was like parent excuse or parental excuse.
Well, yeah, because they had to excuse me. So, I mean, she saw it. She also saw through my bullshit, and she made me become accountable. I honestly attribute a lot of great realizations I had at a very young age to this teacher because she made me step up and become accountable. Like, sure, Courtney, you can blame your dad for saying it's okay for you to stay at home, but why are you not pushing to come to school?
Right.
You know, like, you need to be here. This is your responsibility. And at the time it seemed harsh, obviously, but it wasn't, because it really, I mean, especially in retrospect, it gave me a lot of that momentum to see the little hand tapping me on the shoulder here. 1 second. I'm feeling better. That's great. Can you give mommy a few minutes, please?
That's amazing, because for her to recognize that, okay, there's one thing for you to be like brought into the garbage, but if you were you must have been like somehow making some excuses for it or something, right?
God,
because you recognized that you needed to be somehow like held accountable for it.
Yep.
I will say that is something that, I mean, I always went to school. I really loved school, and I didn't miss very much, and that was sort of a safe haven for me. So I ended up going a lot. I don't know how I did it, because I was like, didn't sleep and fucking I guess when you're young you can do that, but like I always went to school, and I was always late. Although I will say I was always late. I never knew what I was waking up to, and I was always late going to school, but I also was able to walk to school. So I was really in charge of my own, getting there. Having to take a bus or something like that in. So we're back. Gonna have to just bear with us, because this is the reality of mom life. And
yes, we've had 15 interruptions in the past 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Again, because girls are home today. So
but this is it. This is the reality of momhood. And it's wintertime. I don't know if there's anybody who's not in Canada who's listening, but it is wintertime, and kids have been sick for what seems to be 2 months in my house. I'm just getting over a cough now. So
I swear that my children have been sick since they started school back in 2018. No,
oh God,
I'm lying. 2021.
Oh,
holy, kids didn't start school when they were 2. What am I thinking? Anyways, it's been a very long time of being sick, and I just feel like it's all the time. So,
well, it is what it is. But we are circling back to gaslighting.
Yes.
We've talked a little bit about sort of what that's looked like, and some of those moments of like what that looked like specifically in those conversations that we had. And also just like giving a shout out to any of those people who, like, you spoke about your teacher and how she was very positive in your life, and the importance of finding community and finding people who can listen to you openly and like love and support you unconditionally, you know, as a friend, as a colleague, as a like a teacher in your situation, that's such a lovely thing that had happened. And I'm sure that you've thought about her over the years
I
and
think about
how much
her
how
so
important that was.
often because of that. She saw something in me that I didn't know existed. I see what she saw now, but
Yeah.
I never saw it then. I really, and I not to speak illy of myself again, but I really did for so many years just feel like this absolute loser.
Yeah.
Just like that, you know, that kid that you're just kind of like, ugh, there's that girl. That's how I felt about myself.
Right. But that's like the definition of gaslighting, because the definition is literally you are crazy to be thinking this. What you're witnessing is not what it is. And of course you're going to question whether or not like you're smart or intelligent or have the intuition, or of course you're going to be questioning all those things, because that's the whole reason why they're doing it, is because they have probably learned that you are calling them out on their bullshit and that you aren't just like, you know, blanket over your head, not, you know, acknowledging what's going on like they probably are, and gaslighting anybody who comes in the way and disrupting that.
Exactly. I was just a stupid kid. That's how I always felt. Anytime I had a, you know, something of that nature, like a confrontation or just saying something, anything. And even sometimes too, there were a couple of occasions when I didn't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
It was almost like she was waiting for me to say something. And then when I didn't say something, I think she got worried I was going to say something to somebody else. So then would gaslight me enough to not say anything. You know, that was it. That was the biggest thing was, you know, don't talk about what goes on in this house. It's nobody's business. And if you think it's so bad here, you can go live somewhere else. I'll call Children's Aid right now. I think I've mentioned that actually in the very first episode.
You have.
I'll call Children's Aid and they can come get you now, and you'll go live with a much worse family. And that kind of, I mean, that's terrifying. That's a terrifying thing to always be on edge about that. Of course, you're not going to confront the things that are scaring you. Because now you have this looming in the background. So if I have a problem with your behavior, now you threaten to remove me from the situation as if I'm the fucking problem here.
Right.
So
that's gut-wrenching.
But that's
gut-wrenching. Because I had heard that too, like, oh well, you know, you can go live somewhere else. My mom was always constantly trying to kick me out of the house and would throw my stuff out and burn my stuff and like whatever. It was just like, it was so constant.
Well, that's crazy. I never heard
that. She constantly kicked me out of the house. And in fact, like, people who do the gaslighting are narcissists, for one, but they are very manipulative, because eventually I had called the police a couple of times on the situation, and it was because things were very, very, very physical. And there was a big fight, physical altercations, and then the police would get called. I think somebody called the police on us one time, and then she was questioned, and I recognized, oh, okay, well, maybe these people are going to help me. And then I had done it. Not something I'm really proud of. And, you know, it was a situation that was very terrifying for me at the time. But I thought that they would help me, and they didn't. And I think like I was the one that had called the police. I think she had also done that too, but they didn't take me seriously. And they thought that I was just like a reckless, crazy teenager and that I didn't know what was going on. And like, what I'm getting at is that she was so manipulative that she was able to put me in the bad light. And I'm saying, like, walk in my fucking house, go and look and see what's going on here. But they wouldn't. They weren't allowed, I guess, right? Or whatever, however it works. But yeah, so I didn't have her threatening me to like be removed, like in the same way. It was more so that like the police would get involved and then nothing would ever come of it. And she wasn't, she wasn't even really bothered by it, because she would just gaslight the situation to her, like she would die on that hill and be like, there's no problem here, that she's the one who's a reckless teenager. You know how kids get. And like, it would happen like in front of me. And I'm like, I'm the one who's got like marks on my body and shit. Like, what are you talking about? But I don't know. I don't want to blame the system or anything. Like, that's not certainly what I'm getting at. It was just the gaslighting was so bad. The manipulation was so heavy in so many areas of our life that it was like, wow, I felt like I was drowning. I really truly did.
I have this memory just popped into my head actually of a time where my parents were fighting, and it was probably the most volatile fight I'd ever heard them have. And I mean, they didn't have fights like this very often, but this one was a doozy. And I had a friend over at the time, and my friend was getting really scared. She's like, I don't know what to do. I'm really scared. This isn't, and I mean, I'm used to the level of fighting, to the probably like not to the point that it was at, but I'm pretty used to it by
now. You weren't as phased by it. Yeah.
No. So I wasn't. And I was like, okay, and then it, got escalated further, and I was like, okay, I guess maybe we should call the police, because she had suggested that. She was like, maybe we should call the police. So I ended up calling the police. And I have to say that this particular fight, my mom was really instigating. It like cruel things. I remember, I don't remember exactly what was said, but I just remember it was done to get a reaction out of my dad, and to get a really nasty reaction. And that's exactly what was happening. So the police come to the house, and my mom's heavily intoxicated, and they come in the door, and they're talking to my dad. And here comes my mom down the stairs with the 2 guns that they had in the house. So we had 2 guns in the house that obviously they are not registered, and they're not in a safe. They were kept in the corner of the room. The ammunition was in the drawer. It wasn't anywhere near the guns. She brings those guns downstairs, and she's like, I think you need to take these, because I'm worried about our safety. And I was like, wow, what the fuck?
And that was like just put your dad in a bad spot. Just to put
him in this space that she knew exactly what she was doing. She's bringing these guns down. She knows. This isn't because she's afraid for her life. This is to make him look like an asshole. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And she brought them down, and they took them. And I mean, like, my dad didn't, back then it was before the regulations were so strict, right? So it was basically a slap on the hand. We take your guns. If you get the proper, we get a proper locked gun cabinet, and you register these, you can have them back.
Right.
But he never bothered to do that. Again, these guns were never used. They were just hand-me-downs from, I think, his childhood or something.
Oh, that's so brutal.
So, but yeah, just watching her do that, and just because she knew, it was basically just to deflect off of her behavior.
Yeah.
And what she
take the heat off. Yeah.
Take the heat off herself. She was going to throw him under the bus, and sure enough, she did. So,
yeah.
And she kept trying to justify that. Well, these shouldn't be in the house. They're dangerous. They've been in the house for fucking 20 years.
Right.
Long before I was even born.
And it's like to pass the buck and be like, it's not my responsibility, it's his. It's like, that's fucking cop out. That's your house too.
Exactly.
This is
they were in your bedroom, in the corner on your side of the room. You were aware of their existence. They aren't. Yeah. It was really, really messed up to see that. I was really
bothered by that, for sure.
Struck me. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Because I think I'm thinking at the time I was like, oh God, 11 or 12. Yeah. But I remember thinking
I am noticing a trend that we keep bringing up, like our age being around that 12-ish mark. That's obviously been a pivotal time for us in our development, and maybe, that is true. I don't know specifically, but from a psychological standpoint, it seems that we both started to recognize things at around 12 years old, and are able to now
started to become a bit more proactive. And for me, that's really where I started to develop being objective.
Oh, okay.
in the sense that when, for years being pitted against one parent or on the other, being pitted against the other parent and being, like there were times my dad would like manipulate me into going and taking checks out of my mom's checkbook or cash out of her purse and stuff like that. He did that
Oh my
often.
gosh.
He'd be like, oh, I need it for this. Meanwhile, he's going to get booze with it. Like, I'm not a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
But because my love and loyalty was so strong for him, I'm going to do that because,
Mhm.
mom's the big bad wolf here. Not proud of those instances by any means. Again, in retrospect, not proud at all of that. That's but again,
No,
that is
it's
being gaslit. That is being manipulated.
yeah,
That is somebody
it's the
using
manipulation.
their power to your disadvantage, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Right?
Yeah, and when you're a child, obviously, like these people are supposed to be protecting you. This is the people that you get your life lessons from, and these are tough
Yeah.
ones. These are not productive.
No, exactly. And
That is good though that you became more objective, because
Yeah.
I think that is you were able to step back and be like, wait
Well,
a second here.
Yeah.
What is this, like, more of a full perspective on the situation?
Well, I started to be
Instead
able
of
to
just being
see,
like, yeah, Dad, that's not safe.
well, I started to be able to see almost when they would use me in this way.
Mhm.
Instead of just being that little pawn, which I was for a long time, and just did what I was told and kind of bounced between, who I was more loyal to and who I like. That's kind of how it went. And then all of a sudden it was just like this click. And I started to see when these little manipulative moments would transpire, and I would be like, oh, you're just doing this to get your way versus this person, we're actually just doing, how the hell it's really hard to put that into words,
Mhm.
how that was, how to put it, I can't really put it into a perspective. It's really, really hard to kind of understand how that was translated to me.
Mhm.
In that, one parent is manipulating you and, you're like, oh, okay, well, mom is really the best parent today. And then next day it's like, oh no, dad's really the best
Oh,
parent.
okay.
So if that helps articulate that a little bit.
That's sick, honestly. Like, it's
It
sick.
is.
It's gross.
Well, it is, but that's how it was.
Because that's
for me.
not, you're a child. You just want to be loved and love everybody. And these are your parents, and you're, trying to
I
feel
was
safe,
constantly
and you're
back and forth
put in the middle of it all.
like a ping. It was like playing ping pong.
Yeah.
Bounce here, bounce there, until I finally got that, like, again, that objectivity where I would see it and I would be like, no, not.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait a
That's not
second.
going to happen. Like, you're not, you actually were an asshole last night.
Yeah.
So you're not going to pin me against this person. And then vice versa with the other parent, to the point where I just, absolved myself of it. And then that's, in episode 7, we talk about, that's when things really started to get lit up and fucked up.
Yeah.
And those, like, the behavior just became completely crazy.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure we could literally go on for like ages
Years?
about these
Yes.
specific situations. And I appreciate you sharing, some of those specific moments and like things that you have. It's difficult to reflect on these, and difficult to have these moments pop up and to not feel triggered in those moments, and of when you're thinking back at them, like, they are triggering, and it's difficult. So I mean, I appreciate you being candid and honest about that. Those
pop up. That's the thing about doing this, is that they pop into my head. Some of them I barely even knew existed still, and then all of a sudden we're having a conversation, and it's like, oh, okay, there's that's
coming out.
Just,
It's okay if you can get it out, and it's one of the reasons why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Get it out, talk about it. You get a little bit of relief, a little bit less heavy.
Absolutely. No, definitely. And to see it in a different perspective, to see it now, and to see it from the side of being a parent, that, like, how fucking dare you guys?
Yeah.
Honestly, that's, sort of how I perceive it now. Like, how fucking dare you guys do that? That's such a shitty thing to do. No matter what you're going through, that was garbage.
Yeah.
You should have done better, period.
Yeah.
So.
And this is where the healing continues.
Absolutely.
And it's always a journey. And just know that you're doing well and that, your beautiful children that keep popping into the video.
Yes, they do. I may have scolded them a little bit.
That's all right.
I'm like, I gave you snacks and a movie and full control of the remote. Why are you down here right now?
Well, let's wrap it up there.
Yes.
Thank you again, everybody, for the feedback and the love and the likes and the follows and the sharing and the ratings. We hope that this is resonating with people and that you keep enjoying our discussions. And we will see you in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit those subscribe and share buttons. We'll see you at the next one.